Hi, I'm Colin,
I'm Yoshi.
and today we're going to be talking about home defense guns and our top 5 picks.
Oh, dude, yeah, we can party outside.
Alright, so today we're going to be talking about our top 5 picks for home defense guns. I've chosen 5 things, he's chosen 5 things, and we're basically just going to go back and forth, talk about them, poke holes in each other's picks, and kind of give each other an idea of what a good and ultimately maybe the best home defense option is.
Alright, so my first home defense weapon pick and like my first go-to is going to be my Glock 17. Now, it doesn't have to be a Glock 17, it's just what I have. But this is something that I recommend just because it's very easy to use. It's really mobile. I don't have to worry about length or distance and things like that. Again, this is home defense. In the home, this is plenty enough. This is chambered in 9mm. I think 9mm is a great home defense round, especially with hollow points. I don't recommend using ball ammunition. Over penetration is a real thing. Again, you're going to see that theme come up quite a bit today. But so far as this goes, this is kind of old faithful here. I mean, just a regular handgun to defend yourself in the home. But that's my first pick.
Okay, so for the handgun, I would say that it's actually probably maybe a good point that you put it at top or at your 5 pick, just because handguns take training and you gotta worry about shot placement. I'm glad that you brought up the over penetration thing because even 115 grain can go through quite a bit more than people would think. So yeah, using stuff like hollow points, actual self-defense ammunition, really good thing to do.
Yeah.
My number 5 pick is a 20 gauge. This is clear, but I picked the 20 gauge just because 20 gauge a little bit easier to shoot than 12. The other thing too is that 12 gauge and 20 gauge, especially in an average home with like distances inside a home, you're talking maybe 10 to 15 feet in a hallway, maybe. That shot spread is not really going anywhere. You're talking about maybe 1 to 1.5 inches of spread. So the whole, point and shoot myth, and I call it a myth just because shotgun spreads aren't, the whole like, oh, just point and shoot, like that doesn't happen. Your buckshot with 12 or 20, it kind of remains more like a slug. Especially at those close distances, and that's kind of why I picked 20 gauge. It's easier to shoot, recoil's a little bit easier, better to control, better for my wife to shoot. That's kind of another plus side to it. So is it the ultimate? Absolutely not. Shotguns, again, still takes training, still takes practice. It's not just a point and shoot thing. But
So this is a pump, right?
Yeah, pump action.
So, I mean, pros and cons of this thing. I believe that pumps are great, but all like the racking of a pump shotgun is known across the world, and that's a huge deterrent. But another thing is that a lot of people short stroke shotguns under stress. So
True.
That's one thing that it's a mechanical thing that it's another mechanical input that you have to put into the gun.
Yep.
So I'm not like 100% sold on the pump shotgun. Semi-automatic maybe, but then you have more propensity for jamming, and et cetera, et cetera. But the whole deterrent thing with racking a shotgun is really, really nice, because you may not even have to shoot someone. That racking alone may get someone to run. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
So between the 2 picks, which one do you think is better?
Personally, I'm going with the shotgun, just because
Over a handgun?
Well, because over a handgun, like I said, shot placement and learning how to shoot a handgun, I think is way harder than learning how to shoot a shotgun.
I think that's valid, but at the same time, this thing is massive. The maneuverability is not. I mean, we're talking about 5 to 6 times the size of a handgun.
True.
It can be a little unwieldy, especially for like. I mean, you brought up the mention of like maybe your wife or someone else needing to use it. If they're not familiar, that's a big platform to use. Versus this is just, hey, take the gun, point it, and shoot it, because you can operate it with one hand. But that being said, you guys let us know in the comments who you think has a better choice here. All right, so my next choice, I brought out the CZ Scorpion. Now, I'm going to be a little particular on this one. I picked the CZ Scorpion 3 Plus, not just the regular CZ Scorpion Evo 3. The reason why I chose a PCC is because of ammunition capacity. So you have a larger ammunition or a larger magazine in general, as well as ease of manipulation. Now, the reason why I picked this one in particular is because the controls are sort of similar to an AR, which is what I'm used to running. And a lot of people that shoot guns, if you run an AR, the controls are very intuitive. So I find that this one is pretty intuitive in use. Again, not my like top pick for PCC, but this one in particular I do like quite a bit. It does have the folding stock, so if you want to put it somewhere in the home that's kind of small, this will fit in a drawer, which is, well, a deeper drawer, but it will fit. And I think that that's great for concealment. If you don't want, if you have a lockable drawer, you have kids running around the house, something like that, you can put this away and it folds up really small. And just coming right out of the gate, getting this open and closing that, I'm ready to go in the event of something. I think this is a pretty decent choice. So this is my number 4 pick.
Cool. All right. Well, my number 4 pick is going to be my AR.
All right. Let's go.
Okay, so
we're getting rowdy.
Yeah, the AR-15 platform, it is a great platform. But there's a reason why it is my number 4 choice, and most of that has to do with over-penetration. On a short barrel system, your risk of over-penetration becomes less, but it still doesn't really go away, especially, depending on the type of ammo you use. But the reason why it is on my pick is because, this is one of my favorite rifles that I've ever built, but it's extremely easy to use, operate, reliable, lots of different magazines, lights, optics, all sorts of stuff to make sure that, in the event of a home invasion or, something bad happening, I've got all the tools necessary. But like I said, it's number 4 because of over-penetration. It's just one of those things that I think about a lot when it comes to the effectiveness of a round. And I think that's kind of the more important thing to me, is not necessarily the platform, but the round choice itself.
Okay, so
being
more 5.56
5.56
and less the actual gun.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are you going with that?
Oh, I'm putting it over here.
We'll put it on the table so I can look at it and make fun of it.
All right.
All right. So, talking about our choices, between a 9mm PCC and a 5.56, here's the thing that I personally feel about 5.56, and there's a couple of things here that I find very important that not a lot of people think about, is the concussion of the gun itself. Indoors, that blast is very violent.
Especially if you have a muzzle brake.
If you're not suppressed, that's a very good way to perforate your eardrums.
Yeah.
Not only that, but again, with 5.56, there's a very, very specific round that you want to use for home defense. You don't want to use 55 grain. You don't want to use 62 grain. It's 77 grain OTM, which is really expensive, very hard to find. But that being said, with the 5.56 round in ballistics, like the muzzle velocity at close distances, that round's just passing through material.
Yep. So
it may not be. I personally, it's effective, but I don't think it's the most effective round you can use at close range.
No, definitely not. Like I said, I think it's a good all-arounder, but
Fair.
I think it can be good for home defense, but I don't think it is the ultimate. That's why, again, it's number 4, just because it is a great platform, but it has quite a few cons.
Okay, fair.
PCC, I love the PCCs, Scorpion especially, I'm a huge fan. The only thing that I would say about the PCC is they don't run self-defense ammunition super reliably always.
Okay.
Especially compared to a handgun. But even then, it's a great platform just because, again, it's very similar to the AR style controls. I think it's a little bit easier to use than probably a handgun would be, or other platforms. Relatively low recoil, easy to control recoil. So definitely a good choice.
Same to you. Yeah.
Well, cool, guys.
Let us know.
Number 4, let us know in the comments. Let's move on.
We're gonna start some controversy here. All right, so my number 3 pick is gonna be Glock 44. Now, we're gonna have a massive debate about this one. So, yes, I understand that 22 long rifle is not anywhere remotely near the best caliber for home defense. It's not going to stop anyone in one round unless you're really, really good at shot placement. But the one thing that I do find with something like this is I can chamber this gun and hand it to anyone and know that this recoil is not going to be a problem. They're going to be able to point the gun and mitigate the recoil properly and run off a couple of rounds at least with no problem. So far as this particular gun goes, the ergonomics of the Glock 44 is very similar to the Glock 19, which means that a lot of people are going to be able to use it and be comfortable enough with it. But this is something that I chose because I don't really need to be too concerned about over-penetration with this thing. Now, over-penetration and missed shots are two different things, so you're going to see the recurring thing about us talking about training and being able to be capable with the platform. That's one thing, but in terms of actually hitting your target and the round passing through and then keeping that momentum going, 22 is not going to have that problem as much as most of these other calibers. It's going to stop inside the target, and unless you're really, really close, it may pass through, but likely not. But there's the reason why I chose 22 again is less recoil. It's way easier to handle. So if I need to pass this off to someone else while I'm doing something, maybe dealing with someone who's hurt or going to get a different gun, I can pass this off to someone else. And if they don't know how to fire a gun, at least I know if they shoot it, they're going to be okay. But again, this is going to be a controversial pick.
It's a good point, but I have a few hang-ups with it.
Like I said, we're going to start some controversy here.
Number 3 for me is a MCX 300 Blackout. This is clear. Folding it up, I'm going to set it right here on the table. So 300 Blackout, an extremely effective round. That's primarily why this hits the number 3 slot for me, just because, again, it is very, very similar to the AR-15, but I think 300 Blackout is a more effective round than 5.56, especially at close distances. Your stopping power is super great. It's plenty, and over penetration is actually fairly similar to 5.56. So as far as that goes, like, again, yeah, it's got a little bit more of that over penetration factor, but most of the tests that you can see online or read about, it's about the same as 5.56. So if I'm going to have the same over penetration potential, I'd rather have a bigger round, something with a little bit more stopping power. Okay. Another huge caveat to 300 Blackout, and this one isn't, but suppressed. 300 Blackout suppressed, especially if you're using subsonics. Super, super quiet. So you're not going to have that concussive blast, the sound itself, all those things are going to be minimized exponentially. It is super, super quiet, which is great. It's, one less thing you have to worry about, but like I said, and kind of how you brought up before, pretty expensive platform. Ammo's not the cheapest right now, so training with 300 Blackout can be kind of a hit on the wallet. But again, if we're talking home defense and, I need to do everything I can to protect myself and my loved ones, this would definitely be a great pick for me. I have a few hang-ups with the 44.
Let's go.
One, stopping power. It doesn't have much. It can be effective. It can. It's not impossible. Also, there's a reliability factor here.
I don't think
22 across the board is not super reliable all the time.
I've had very, very good luck. Maybe it's just me. I've had very good luck with 22s. I haven't really had a lot of jams, and usually if I did, it's because I'm running really bad ammunition. One thing to note, for not a lot of people realize this, but if you're running a 22, you want to run a heavier bullet. So 40 grain is actually way more superior in terms of cyclability than 36 grain. So usually those guys are getting a lot of jams with 22, they're running 36 grain. So understanding that, I'm not disagreeing that there is a reliability factors to some extent. These are all considerations to take into account, but so far as these two picks go, in terms of the two, I'm going to give it to Colin. I hate to admit, but if I had to pick a 22 handgun over an 300 Blackout MCX, I'm gonna take the MCX. But I still retain the contention that 22 is a viable defense round if used correctly and understanding the thought process behind it.
Yep, I would agree. I win.
I picked out the Cmmg Banshee in 5.7. this platform itself, like the PCC AR platform, is a great platform. But in specific, I chose 5.7, and I chose this particular gun for the round, not for the platform. I think that 5.7 is an amazing round, although it is expensive and a little bit hard to find. The ballistic characteristics of 5.7 are great. So that's kind of my number 2 pick. We can debate this in a minute here, but I want to see what this guy chose because I think I'm gonna win.
Okay. All right. Well, my number 2 choice is one that he already brought up, but I put it lower on the list because I think it's better than what he thinks it is. The PCC. Okay. So I also have a Cmmg Banshee. We're going to pretend that this one's a 9mm, and I'll tell you why we're going to pretend it's a 9mm later. But the PCC, I think it's one of the ultimate home defense weapons, just because, again, shootability, it's easy. Ammunition capacity is a bit higher than handguns, relatively low recoil. You have options. So, I mean, you got 9mm, 45, 40, 5.7. There's so many options in the PCC world. And I think it's just one of those things that, like, for home defense stuff, it's amazing. It does great. Its over penetration for most of those rounds is relatively low, and they're all very effective rounds. So I think one of the points that I brought up earlier with, home defense ammunition not running super well in certain PCCs, that still rings true. But even then, I think it's a great platform.
So this one's like kind of cheating because we're both sitting in the PCC category. So now it's effectively what we're talking about is like round characteristics. So, I mean, assuming 9mm versus 5.7, I think 5.7 is a better. It's lighter, significantly lighter in terms of actual like the round itself. So when you load into the magazine's going to be lighter. The ballistic characteristics of 5.7, I think, are better in a self-defense standard of recoil. Recoil is going to be way less with a 5.7, feels like a 22. Round choice, so you can, I've seen some guys do this where they spread load in the same magazine. They'll mix in hollow points, they'll mix in AP or regular ball ammunition at the very, very end. If they need that extra penetration, they can get it. 5.7 is a really fast moving round, so again, if you're worried about armor, things like that, it can defeat armor. However, that brings into the question of overpenetration. Now, so far as overpenetration goes, they do make hollow points for 5.7, which is great, and they do slow down quite a bit. You're talking about a very, very light round, so it's going to dump all that kinetic energy when it's moving. 9mm, I think it's a little too much mass compared to 5.7. Now, not as a whole, but compared to 5.7, it's a lot of mass.
It's a heftier
I think it's
bullet.
almost like double. If you go to like 115 grain, and then you go to like subs, like 147, 150 grain, it's almost triple the weight of a 5.7 round. But that's why I think that 5.7 is a superior round in terms of self-defense. Now, cost-wise and training-wise, I don't know anyone that trains with a 5.7 unless they're like, pouring money out of their pockets, because it's a really expensive round versus 9mm.
That's true. And that's kind of my biggest hang up with 5.7 is it is so expensive right now.
It's hard to find, but I do think it is. Now we're talking about like in the realm of home defense. I think it's a better round.
I mean, if cost isn't an issue, I would agree it's actually a pretty great round. We're starting to get into these lower numbers now where it's becoming hard for me to kind of disagree, but we're
nitpicking for like a reason. Like it's yes, it's information spread, but also it's one of these things that like we're getting to a point where we're starting to agree on more things because there's a synonymous kind of idea behind it. But so far as that goes, like, I mean, the PCC platform is a great home defense platform. I personally think that 5.7 is a better self-defense round than 9mm is, to a degree that you choose the right ammunition. Sending 5.7 ball through your house is a terrible idea unless you absolutely need to. So that's just my opinion. But I think this 5.7 is a superior round.
Yeah, I would say 5.7. It is a pretty awesome wicked round, but again, 9mm, 40, 45, PCCs in general, I mean, all those other calibers, they're easier to get, more cost effective when it comes down to training. you know.
At the end of the day, if a couple of rounds is what it takes to save someone else's life or my own, I'll spend the $5 or $10. I don't care.
That's true. Yeah, that's
my life is worth $5 to $10. Again, I'm gonna stand by my guns here and say that I choose 5.7.
All right, well, that's our number 2 pick. You guys let us know what you think is better, 5.7 or 9mm.
My number 1 pick is gonna be my 300 Blackout. Now, there's a reason why.
Tables have turned.
We talked about it earlier, but in terms of like the choices, we had the 300 Blackout versus a handgun. Now, if we talk about like that comparison, yes, absolutely, I would take 300 Blackout. There are a couple of factors that I took into account. However, we did discuss a little bit earlier that when it comes down to self-defense, you can't really put a cost on that, and you shouldn't, because life is invaluable. But it does play a factor. Now, in this particular setup, this is my actual home defense gun. And the way that it's set up is I do have a lot of stuff on here that is very expensive. But the reason being is this gun is suppressed, and 300 Blackout works better off a shorter barrel to a degree. This is an 8.5-inch barrel. It is suppressed. I do have a PEC 15 on here, which is, again, I like to play out scenarios in my head, and the worst case scenario is if there is no light whatsoever, I can always throw on my night vision. But this does have a visible laser that's pretty bright, so if I needed some illumination, I can use that. However, it is set up for night vision use, again with the optic and riser. 300 Blackout subsonic stays in this gun. I think that it's an amazing round for home defense. T20 grain OTM is specifically what I'm talking about. I don't think supersonics are very good at all for home defense. Self-defense, maybe, in like, end of the world scenario. But so far as home defense goes, I explicitly use 220 grain OTM because of over-penetration qualities. But this gun is very familiar to me. I did not pick a 5.56 AR for a reason. I don't think that it's a great home defense round. We're talking about very short engagement distances here. We're talking about indoors, so the concussion, and these can all be problems. However, 300 Blackout subsonic, it's not very loud. It's very, very good for close range. It's not very effective for long range, so I'm not going to be using it for that. But it is a good platform that I am used to using, so the training value is there. All the controls are the same as my other guns, and this is very intuitive to me. So far as that goes, I chose my 300 Blackout for my number 1 home defense.
Cool. No, I would. It's hard for me to disagree at this point, just because I've already said 300 Blackout.
Exactly. I'm making him a hypocrite.
Yeah,
There's no defense.
Putting it in a number 1 slot, I think, is a decent choice. But here's where we get even better, because my number 1 choice is a handgun. So this is my personal handgun. It's a kind of Gucci.
How the tables have turned.
This is clear and unloaded, but the handgun, I think, is the number 1 choice, just because kind of the things you brought up before. Profile is pretty small. It does take training to know how to effectively use a handgun, but most people, you can take an intro course or a 101 course, and you can get up to speed pretty quickly on how to be effective with a handgun. 9mm, again, I think is one of the ultimate defensive rounds. Especially in handguns, now we're getting back to that point of self-defense rounds, which are extremely capable and great for the home defense situation. They run better in handguns than they do PCCs. So that's kind of where, it's funny that you put it as your number 5. It's my number 1.
Platform for platform, I'd rather take a rifle over a handgun in terms of self-defense, because I'm not going to go looking for a gunfight, so I can post up on a door and just hold my angle while I'm on the phone with the police.
Absolutely.
And then also, in terms of round availability, I think that having that 220 grain OTM, the ability to suppress it and still have the maneuverability, is better to me. I've got better optics, I've got better ergonomics, I've got better controls, and overall, I think it's just a better platform in terms of self-defense. Cost-wise, maybe not, but that being said, you can't put a price on a life. So.
Nope, that's true. That's true. And I mean, yeah, for this, for our number 1 picks here, I think there's going to be plenty of people that agree, disagree.
Say it.
I always think I win, but but you guys are going to be the decider here. Let us know number one pick, or maybe what your number one pick would have been. Like I said, these are just opinions. These are just things that hopefully help start a conversation, help you think a little bit about these things. When it comes to home defense, there are so many aspects to that. The firearm is just one of them, one of many. So let us know what you guys think.
Frying pan.
Yep, frying pan.
Let us know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys like this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell. Let us know how you feel about everything. That being said, if you can, in the comments, let us know why I won, and we'll go from there. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks so much. Bye.